Good evening, everyone. This is Latice Bell, or Coach Latice, as some of you know me, owner of Coach Latice Consulting Services and Secrets to Grants. Some of you follow me on Facebook here in the group, or you follow me on our page, my page, The Secrets of Grant Writing, Business Plans, Funding, and more. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Wherever you follow me or however you follow me, I would just like to take this opportunity to say thank you. I want to talk to you tonight about, just real briefly, about the secrets to hiring the right grant writer, or the right grant writing consultant. But before I get into detail or specifics, I want to tell or share some information, some background information about me for those of you who will be introduced to me for the first time through this short video. I have a sociology degree from Spelman College and a master in social work degree from the University of Southern California. 19 years of social services experience. I've worked for government entities and public entities and have been afforded the opportunity to work as a private consultant in community advocacy and nonprofit consulting. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you briefly about what it takes to hire the right grant writer or the right grant writing consultant, because this is very important. A lot of you who are in my group or even outside of the group ask me information via various social networking apps about getting access to funding, starting a nonprofit organization, and grant writing services that I offer and services that others offer. I'm also going to be doing a series of short videos to help you moving forward in assessing whether or not you and your organization are actually grant ready overall. I'm also going to be talking and sharing information with you about mistakes that grant writers often make, or consultants that are working on behalf of nonprofit organization attempting to access funding, some of the things that can go wrong when applying for funding. And I'll have some information on some upcoming workshops that can also be helpful and assist you in your accessing funds for your community project or program. Okay, so let's get into it. There's a few things that I want to share, a few tips, three things specifically that I think that you should probably pay attention to that will help you. And I also want to share and give you some red flags to look out for when you are considering contracting with or working with somebody that states that they are a grant writer or grant writing consultant. So the first thing that I think is important for you all to know is knowing the difference between a program consultant or program developer and a grant writer. Two distinct roles, although a program consultant or program developer can be one of the same individuals. A program developer or consultant can also be a grant writer, but it's important for you as the organization or the individual working on behalf of the organization. It's important that you know the difference between the two. So the difference between the two roles is that a program developer or program consultant is an individual that is knowledgeable and has experience and expertise when it comes to the development of an actual community project or program. They play a very influential role in the framework of the project, the framework of the program, the ins and outs, the who, what, when, where, and why. The grant writer or grant writing consultant their role specifically is to do one or two things or to do both. And I'm speaking in terms of either they have knowledge, wisdom, and expertise in researching available funding options or available funds in the forms of grants, and or they have the knowledge and expertise as to how to apply for the grants that the organization might be looking for. However, when somebody has gone forward or is thinking that they want to, high essence, I'm assuming, I'm sorry y'all, but one of my business partners and friends is just signed on, but I'm assuming that that when you're getting ready to take that step, you want to make sure that you are actually prepared, meaning that you don't want to contract with a grant writer and you don't have your program written out. You don't have any of the foundational information that's necessary in order for you to even access the grant. You want to make sure that you already have that information laid out so that when you sit in front of that grant writer, that grant writing consultant, the only thing that they're tasked to do is to research the grant and complete the application for you. If you do not have that information, then that means that you are in the development phase of your program. You are not grant ready. So that is the first thing that you want to know. The second thing that you want to be aware of, or people often ask me about, is where to go to look for a grant writer. And there's a few ways that you can do that. You can search different social networking apps, social media apps, such as LinkedIn. LinkedIn is often a tool that I will use, that I will send people to when they are inquiring about my background and the services that I offer. Anyone can Google me, they can search for me on LinkedIn, and they can see all the connections that I have, and they can also see the references that have been given on behalf of my work. You can also Google locally. You can look up grant writers locally through Google, and sometimes nonprofit organizations will pop up. They offer services such as grant writing workshops or grant writing services. And so you never know, there could be a local agency or a consultant that is right in your area. Another place to look for a grant writer, grant writing consultant is your local small business administration. That is a site, an agency, an organization that has tons of information for entrepreneurs and those who have small businesses that are just starting out. Let's see. Okay. And the third thing that you want to do when you are considering working with a consultant, a grant writing consultant, is you want to ask about their educational background. You want to know if they took a 2 or 3 day course, or if they actually went to a college or university. The reason why I say that is because somebody, not to say that anything is wrong with taking a 2 or 3 day course, but what I will say that there is a big difference between taking a 2 to 3 day workshop, a course, versus taking an actual course at a college or university. Just one of my classes, it took me 3 years to complete my graduate studies, and just one of my classes in this field took an average of 8 to 10 weeks. So can you imagine how much information I was able to ascertain in an 8 to 10 week period just with one course, versus someone that is promising that if you pay $200 or $300, they can teach you the art and the skill of grant writing. So I would advise that you that you take into consideration if that person did get a certificate after taking a 2 or 3 day course, that they have knowledge they have experience. They have experience outside of that workshop. That way you'll be able to gauge whether or not that person is the right individual for the job. Now, I'll have some workshops coming up shortly that I'll advertise, I'll put on Eventbrite, but I can honestly tell you that I'm cautious about some of the information that I put out there, because I don't want to give anybody any false hope or perception about what they're going to get in a 2-hour workshop or 2 or 3 day workshop if it's in person. Okay, so you definitely want to ask about their educational background, their professional experience. But what I would caution you all to stay away from is, don't base or weigh your decision based upon how the success of what a consultant says that they have. In other words, anybody can tell you anything, and they can say that, you know, they've worked with 1,000 clients and their funding rate, they're 100%. They've received 100%. Their rate is at 100%, meaning that every grant that they've ever written, they've gotten. I would say that that's not true, because there are about 4 different categories where a funder rates a grant application. And so a lot of times people think that if a grant is not funded, it is solely the faults of the grant writer, and that's false information. That's not necessarily true. A lot of grants don't get funded. Organizations don't get funded for a grant that they might go after simply because maybe a couple of organizations before them have received funds in the past. And so anybody that has received funds in the past, they're more likely to get funding from that organization a second or a third time. Okay. So here are some red flags that I would like to share with you. If somebody's asking you for $3,000 and $4,000 up front immediately without any type of contract, be cautious of that. If they're not taking the time to get to know your organization, if they're not taking the time to verify who you are and what you say that your organization does, meaning they're not taking the time to see if you're actually registered and you're active with the Secretary of State, that you have a state exemption as well as a federal exemption, but yet they're ready and eager to take money from you, I would say that that is a red flag, and I would caution you to go into the other direction. The other red flag that I would pose to you or have you all to be aware of is anybody that tells you that you can gain $50,000 or $100,000 within 30 days through a grant application. That is definitely a red flag. If they're promising you something that is going to take less than 6 months, I would be very cautious about that, because on average, your grant application takes about 6 months to a year to be awarded, dependent upon the entity that you are soliciting from and the type of grant that it is. Now, if it's something where it's $500, $1,000, maybe even $2,500, you might be able to successfully get access to funds like that. But when you start getting into the hundreds of thousands of dollars and somebody's telling you that you can get that within 30 to 45 days, please run in the opposite direction. The other red flag that I would like to mention is someone that doesn't have a corporation, or they don't have a DBA or FBN, doing business as, or a fictitious business name, and they're an entity or individual that you are not able to research online. You can't find them anywhere online. You can't find them anywhere online. They can't give you any type of references. You can't even get on social media and Google their name, and you can't find them. I would be really, really cautious about entering into a contract with the individual like that. Okay. The other thing that I would like to give you a piece of information about hiring a grant writer is typically grant writers are an expense that is paid upfront, meaning that it is not necessarily ethical to have or ask a grant writer if they would just write the grant for you and that you would put them in the grant, because typically funds are given, the main reason why an organization, a funder would give funds is for program purposes mainly. So not to go to people's salaries, and certainly not to necessarily go to a contracted grant writer unless that person is going to be a part of your organization and soliciting funding options for you. It just depends on the way that it's written. So that's a little bit of information that will help you as well. Okay, so I think that kind of wraps up what I would like to add. And before I close out, I did forget one thing. Whoever you're thinking about working with, ask them for a writing sample. It doesn't have to be long. It could be half of a page. It could be a page, but ask them for some sort of writing sample, because the last thing that you want to do is enter into a contract or give someone thousands of dollars only for you to discover that this person can't write or spell. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that that person has some type of that their writing is efficient enough, because if they can't give you a sample of their writing, then something is wrong with that. You don't want to wait until you gave them $2,000 or $3,000 to find that out. You want to know upfront. And also, I would like to say that a non-disclosure or a disclosure agreement or confidentiality agreement should always come into play when you're thinking about contracting or hiring a grant writer or a grant writing consultant. If that individual is not willing or does not present to you a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality or non-compete agreement and a contract, a viable contract that tells you exactly what they're going to do for you within a certain amount of time, I would caution you to stay away from that person. So that's about it. As a recap, real quick, 3 things that you definitely want to look for. Know the difference between a program consultant and a grant writer. Number 1. Number 2, you can look for a grant writer through LinkedIn or other social networking apps or social media apps. Check out the website of your local small business administration, or simply Google it. Try to get information on local nonprofits that might be offering grant writing workshops, or they might act and grant or offer grant writing services. And again, get some background information on the person that you're thinking about hiring or contracting with as a grant writer. Please do not get fooled by somebody telling you that they were able to get $250,000 or $500,000. That means nothing, because it doesn't mean that they're able to get that for you. So you want to dig a little bit further. If you have any questions or you would like to know more information, please feel free to contact me through the group, or you can inbox me through the official page. The group's official page is The Secrets of Grant Writing, Business Plans, Funding, and More. Do not inbox me through my personal account, because I may not see it or I may not get to it. But if you go directly to the page, you can inbox me through the official page, or you can email me, Coach Lettice. Coach Lettice is spelled Lettisse @gmail.com. Thank you and have a great evening.